Well, what about this, though? Russian President Vladimir Putin taking a veiled shot at the U.S., vowing to retaliate if America deploys missiles to Europe.
Russia will be forced to create and deploy new types of weapons that could be used not only against the territories where a direct threat to us comes from, but also against the territories where decision-making centers directing the use of missile systems threatening us are located.
Well, maybe not so veiled. So how should the U.S. respond to this increased aggression from Moscow? Here now to weigh in is senior fellow and military expert at Defense Priorities, Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis. Thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So we didn't want this to fly under the radar because it certainly seems important. What should the U.S. do and how should we respond?
Well, see, this is the reason why we have the most powerful military on the planet and the most sophisticated nuclear deterrent on the planet, because there's no country in the world that's going to attack the United States with nuclear weapons, because there's no country on the world that's going to survive our nuclear response. Vladimir Putin is very aware of this, and so he's certainly not going to actually take any action that would harm his own country. Now, he's also very media savvy, and you can bet that every word of that speech was intentionally chosen and intended for an American audience, because what he wants is to create fear of him and to elevate the threat that he poses which is not the truth. So he doesn't want that.
And what is his stated reason behind this?
Well, see, from his perspective, you know, the INF Treaty prevented short-range missiles on either side, of either the Cold War between Russia or NATO. And so it's in his interest to not have that. So he wants that to be kept in place. So he wants to threaten NATO and the United States to not deploy any new missiles. And frankly, I think that's also in our interest, because we don't want to ratchet up tensions, and it's not in our interest to poke the bear unnecessarily.
But is that what we pulled out of? Is that what we were talking about in terms of they were not keeping up their end of the bargain? They weren't doing what they were supposed to do?
Right. That is the claim. We're claiming that their, I believe it's the CSS-8 missile was in violation of the INF Treaty. They have a counterclaim that some of our interceptors are actually violating the treaty as well. And so both of us are claiming the same thing. But the bottom line is that we have now pulled out of it. They have pulled out of it. And at least it opens the possibility that there's going to be the introduction of new missiles. But again, I cannot stress enough, that is not in our interest. We don't need to do that, because our deterrent overall is far capable of overwhelming anything that Russia might want to do with that.
What about this possibility, Russia claiming that they've developed this missile that can fly 9 times the speed of sound with a range of 620 miles? Do you think that is propaganda as well?
It may be, but we can't really take the risk that that's not the case. But really, it goes down to the bottom line is we can deter Russia indefinitely, as we have for decades, because of our strong deterrent otherwise. So what we don't want to do is inflate the threat and be more afraid than we're supposed to, because we're actually very secure because of our nuclear deterrent. So what Russia says, a lot of it's just frankly propaganda designed to create fear, and we really don't need to buy into that.
All right. Lieutenant Colonel Davis, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Important topic.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right.